Greetings, everybody. It is Geoff Keah, Director with IASIU, and with me here is my friend, colleague, and at this point we can add European travel partner to the mix, Matthew Smith with the Global Insurance Fraud Summit. And we're going to do a little podcast here talking about the Global Insurance Fraud upcoming report to the nations. There will be at the bottom here in the YouTube channel the links to sign up for those. I'll let Matthew talk about that. So Matthew, many people, if you want to talk about the upcoming report and give some details to it.
I would love to do that, Geoff, and thank you and thank IASIU for the opportunity to be with you today on the podcast. It's been a long time since I've talked to many of my friends in the IASIU community, and it's good to reconnect with you. And in retirement, I was asked and have the privilege of serving as a volunteer to be the executive director of the Global Insurance Fraud Summit. For those that may not be familiar, hopefully you know about, we call it GIFS, G-I-F-S, the Global Summit. IASIU is a tremendous supporter and has been from day one. So the Global Summit was the vision of a person many of you know, Dennis Toomey, now with PwC, but Dennis was the founder and is the president of the Global Insurance Fraud Summit. And the idea behind the summit that Dennis originally visualized was we needed to bring together world regulatory leaders, world law enforcement officials, and worldwide anti-fraud leaders. And he realized that vision in 2019 when we had a relatively small group. I think we had about maybe 15 to 17 countries, which was really amazing for a first event, gather in Barcelona, Spain for the first ever Global Insurance Fraud Summit. And it was a 3-day event. We all left there absolutely psyched to say, this is great. We need to build upon this, and we can't wait to get back together next year. And all of a sudden, this little thing called COVID came along. So in 2020 and 2021, the Global Summit was done virtually, thanks in part to the help of my friends at the Coalition Against Insurance Fraud. And in 2021, we rolled out the first ever global insurance fraud study that the coalition pushed out. And we had a record number of people participate in the virtual summit. In 2022, we got back together in person and we met in Lisbon, Portugal. In 2023 in Edinburgh, Scotland. And last year, we had the privilege of meeting and had a record number of attendees in, of all places, Singapore, which was incredible to do that. So I think you can ask me some more questions, but we're here today to talk about our mid-year report, the upcoming global report to the nations. And I am really excited to invite everyone from IASIU to participate in that event coming up later this month.
Oh, for sure. So, we're talking about, GIFS and, there's a lot of different conferences and stuff out there. So is GIFS the same or is it different than these conferences such as IASIU, AFE, IFM, and of course the coalition?
That's a great question. And the answer is we are entirely different. And that's in part because of the mission being different, but also because every one of those groups that you really just mentioned and the organizations behind them are part of and supporter of the Global Insurance Fraud Summit. In fact, IASIU has a permanent seat on our executive committee, as does the coalition, as does NICB. And Veros, which puts on IFM along with NICB, is one of our major supporters for the Global Insurance Fraud Summit. So all of those entities are involved. So number one, we have a different mission that I'll talk about in a moment. But number two, in no respect do we want to compete with any of those incredible conferences that are done in the United States. In fact, we want to support those, build upon those, and encourage those to grow even stronger. But the mission of the Global Summit, if you really look at it this way, and this is why groups like IASIU, NICB, the coalition have seats on the executive committee, is for their leadership to then be a part of the Global Insurance Fraud Summit. So number one, we're a working summit. It's not a conference. We don't do breakout sessions. The attendees are in one room together during the 3-day conference, working on issues, coming up with solutions, sharing what's working in their nations, and generating deliverables. That's what we call it. We'll talk about them probably on this podcast, that we can take back to world anti-fraud leaders. So it is an actual working summit. For that reason, there's two other things that are important that distinguish it from those other great conferences. One is it's by invitation only. So we're not looking for come one, come all. We're not looking for the global summit to be 500 or 5,000 people. We want the right people around the table who are the world's leaders who can really drive forceful change. So the second part of that is not only is it by invitation, but we also limit the summit to between 100 and 125 attendees. So that's very important because we want it to be a working group that can actually bond, get to know each other. And that 100 to 125, by the way, changes every year because we move it around the world, literally. So we don't expect everybody to be at every summit, but we do expect the people that are there to be committed to the purpose of the global summit and to build those ties and relationships so that we can generate those deliverables that I was talking about.
For sure. You previously served as an advisor here to IASIU when you were with the coalition, and we get these questions all the time. It's like, well, I don't know what kind of salary do you get for this? We're like, no, this is servant leadership. This is adjacent to our current jobs that we have. So I know you volunteer as the GIFS executive director, but who else helps lead GIFS, and how can people find out more about what you're doing?
Absolutely. So first off, Jeff, as you noted, all of us that work with the Global Insurance Fraud Summit volunteer our time. And these are people from literally around the world. And we have no paid staff, none. We also don't have membership dues. So we do, starting this year, charge for people to attend the summit, but most of it comes through our sponsors that sponsor the Global Insurance Fraud Summit. And by the way, the person who does an incredible job leading that is none other than Celeste Dodson. And Celeste has led our sponsorship program for many, many years. So the way that the Global Insurance Fraud Summit is set up, and I'm going to get down to the legal weeds here for just a minute. We are an incorporated entity. We are a U.S. incorporated entity. With the help of our friends at the Catton Law Firm, many know Ross Silverman, we were able to not only incorporate, but we are also a 501c3. So we are a designated charitable organization. We're nonprofit, meaning anything that's donated to us is also a tax write-off for those that give. And we're governed by an executive committee. The members of the executive committee, Dennis is our president and founder. Our vice president is Celeste, representing IASIU. Our secretary is Maxence Bazin, who heads Alpha, ALFA, the anti-fraud group in France, and also has wonderful connections throughout the EU. Our treasurer, many of you know, is Jay Bobrowski, former president of AFA out in California. They are also one of our sponsors, and Jay is our treasurer, also helps us oversee our website. And then we have two other executive committee members, Dan Abbott from the National Insurance Crime Bureau. And of course, fond spot in my heart, the coalition is represented by Michelle Rayfeld as the executive director, and she rounds out that executive committee, and we get great support from both NICB and from the coalition. And if you want to learn more about the Global Insurance Fraud Summit, we have a full website. It's globalinsurancefraudsummit.org, globalinsurancefraudsummit.org. And then also, thanks to Maxence, who runs our communications program, we are on all of the social media platforms. So check us out and join us and like us, whether it's on LinkedIn, X, Facebook. We are on all of the different platforms, and you can simply search Global Insurance Fraud Summit and we should pop up. And we are regularly, this morning, we posted an article that was just published in the CLM magazine about artificial intelligence and fighting fraud. We're promoting the event that we're going to talk about here today, the Report to the Nations, on our social media sites. So we invite everyone to not only check out our website, but also like us and join us on the social media platforms.
Sure. So we're talking about GIFS and what it is and what it stands for. And I understand there's an event coming up at the end of this month that might be of interest to insurance fraud professionals. Can you tell us a little more about that?
I would be glad to. And hopefully all of you will not only have an interest, but will join us for this. Because while the summit, as I mentioned, is limited to only 100 to 125 and is by invitation only for IASIU's leaders and other leaders to be there, there are many, many great ways that all of the people joining us today in this podcast and everyone who's a part of IASIU can be engaged in and help support the work of the Global Summit. And one of those is coming up here very quickly. Every 6 months, we do a report to the nations. In the fall, that is done at the summit itself. In the spring period, our report to the nations is open to anyone that wants to learn about what we're doing, wants to hear about the deliverables, and we call it this report to the nations. We began it last year, and we broadcast it from Rome, actually as part of the IASIU Europe conference last year. This year, we'll be broadcasting it from AFA's conference in Monterey, California. Because we're a global organization, we do it in 2 sessions, one for the Eastern Hemisphere, one for the Western Hemisphere. So jot this down, and Jeff's going to show you the links on how you can participate in it. But the first summit update, the Global Report to the Nations, will be on April the 30th, a.m. Eastern Daylight Time. Now, that's the one most Americans are going to want to participate in. So April 30th, 11 a.m. East Coast, 8 a.m. West Coast. Now, if you're an insomniac or you happen to be involved in IASIU internationally, the second one will be on May 1st, and we'll be broadcasting again live. This isn't recorded. It's a live program at 6 p.m. Pacific Daylight Time, which will be actually, if my math and time zones are right, 10 o'clock in the morning on May 2nd, if you're in Australia, Korea, Singapore, Malaysia, where we have very active participants in the Global Insurance Fraud Summit. So we'll be on May 1st in the evening from California, but mid-morning the next day, already with the timeline over in the other hemisphere.
Nice. Yeah, I recently, for my 50th birthday this week, I got a new tag, Carrera, that keeps GMT time. So if I want to keep track of where my European partners are, I can do it with the watch and not have to convert it. So what other plans does GIFS have in the works in the coming months? And when will your next summit be? Where will it take place?
Well, and you'll hear more about this if you do tune in on April 30th or again on May 1st. But the Global Summit is also committed to what we call deliverables. What are we actually doing to help you, the people that are watching this today, to fight insurance fraud? So we're going to talk about the deliverables that we're working on currently. And those are 2. And I think both are monumental. One is a global insurance fraud directory. Nothing like this exists currently. And we're working closely with our friends at the coalition. They're helping us on this. We're working with our webmaster to set this up so we can do it appropriately. But it will be an accessible and searchable directory of global anti-fraud professionals around the globe. Now, you will need to register. You'll need to provide some credentials to get access to the global directory. But let me give you a really good example of that. If you, let's say my friend Armin Glick, who is the fraud director in the state of Utah, and Armin has attended one of our global insurance fraud summits. But if Armin is working on an investigation in Utah and finds out that that has ties to the country of Turkey, he's not going to know immediately who to reach out to necessarily. But by searching the global directory, he can find out who heads law enforcement or regulatory oversight in Turkey and access that person to make that connection. More importantly, if someone in Korea or Australia, under our system, where we're the only country that has 51 different insurance commissioners and fraud directors, a lot of the nations or almost everyone has a central We have 51 in the United States. So let's say someone with the Australian Border Police is investigating insurance fraud and it ties back to Texas, Jeff, your state. They should be able to search the global directory and find out who the fraud director is in Texas and make that connection. So we're trying to have a deliverable that connects the world. The second deliverable we're working on is a bigger issue, but it's so vitally important. And we're in the infancy stages of setting this up. But it will be a global insurance intelligence network. It will be a sharing space where if new frauds are emerging in, say, Malaysia, Korea, they can share it. And someone in the United States can say, oh, here's a trend that's coming, or in Europe. So it will be, again, it'll be protected. There will be safeguards put in place as to what information is there in terms of making sure we comply not only with US regulations, but global regulations. But it'll be an intelligence center where fraud fighters can share information with each other on what's new, what's emerging, what they're seeing, and what's effective in fighting fraud. So we'll be talking about all of those things when we do the report to the nations. And we'll also be building up excitement for our next Global Insurance Fraud Summit, which will be October 19th through the 22nd. And that will be in Toronto, Canada. So 2025 is the first time in our history that the Global Insurance Fraud Summit is coming to the North American continent. And we are extremely excited about that. So we'll be filling in people with all of the details. And if you think that you might be a person who ought to have one of those seats at the summit, tune in on April 30th or May 1st, and we'll give you information on how to find more information out about Toronto 2025.
Very nice. Those are some exciting additions to GIFS. Everyone who's done investigations, most of us are probably watching this, do at CONUS here in the United States. But if you've done it long enough, eventually you're going to get something that involves another country. And for up until now, it's been like a real challenge. For like, where do I start trying to find these contacts? So, speaking of, as through your time with Coalition and IASIU, we have both probably been approached by a lot of people about, how do I get involved in IASIU? I don't want to be a director yet. I don't want to be the president, but I want to be involved. So if for our listeners that want more information about how to get involved or just more about GIFS, what ways can they do so?
Certainly. Well, number one is go to our website, theglobalInsuranceFraudSummit.org. Check out our website. We have our history there. We have information on the upcoming conference in Toronto, the summit that we'll be doing there, our mission, our history, all of that is on the website, globalInsuranceFraudSummit.org. If you have questions, feel free to reach out to me. My email address is director@globalfraud.org, director@globalfraud.org. And I'd be happy to answer any questions. Stay tuned to the website as we roll out these new programs. The deliverables that I'm talking about, we'll put information on the website there. If you want to register to get access to those down the road, we're not there yet, but in the coming months, we'll have the portal set up where you can register your credentials to get access to that information as we roll it out. But most importantly, like everything, we need support to survive. So especially if you're an entity that is looking for exposure to the global anti-fraud community, to that very high tier of leaders that do attend and participate in the summit, please consider being a sponsor. We really encourage that. And it's not a heavy lift to be a sponsor of the Global Insurance Fraud Summit. You all know Celeste Dodson. Reach out to Celeste. She can also be reached through the Global Insurance Fraud Summit website. She's got an email address with us as well. But we really would encourage you to consider being a sponsor of the Global Insurance Fraud Summit. And if I can entice people with that, if you are a sponsor, you also do get 2 seats at the summit. So
Nice.
there's an incentive there as well. If you want to be as what was the great show Hamilton, if you want to be in the room where it happens, consider being a sponsor, and then we'll see you in Toronto, and we would certainly appreciate that.
Very nice. Well, again, thank you, Matthew, for joining us today for this little podcast. All the links will be down here in the description on the YouTube channel. You can sign up for those upcoming report to the nations. And thank you again for coming out, and thanks for all watching. We'll see you next time.
Thank you, Jeff. My pleasure.